So, at first, you have a problem that needs solving. If you just randomly start trying to solve the problem, or if you are just thinking without observing everything, there is a high chance that you won't succeed in solving the problem. You can't just randomly jump around hoping that a good idea comes into your mind and solves the problem. Most people are just doing that. The human brain operates in a state of inherent randomness, which is mostly shaped by their surrounding environment. Only when you are fully aware does that randomness fade away. If you face your problems without a structured approach, you'll be uncertain. You won't be confident enough and you'll just waste time and energy. But every structured approach begins with observation. Don't rush. First, see the bigger picture and also the smaller parts that constitute the picture. The first thing you need to learn is the art of seeing or observing a problem. Once you see everything clearly, useful ideas come into your mind automatically. The thing is, these ideas are mostly true and accurate. Unlike when you are just thinking without being aware, that kind of thinking is flawed because it is most likely biased. Our minds are very sensitive, and they naturally tend to lean towards bias to overcome the fear of uncertainty. If you don't consciously recognize these cognitive biases up front, they'll quietly skew your decisions no matter how structured your thinking is. I just want to pause and clarify something. I haven't been directly talking about Death Note because there's simply no need to. Most of the insights in these videos are drawn from analyzing the characters, and I don't want to waste your time pointing out exactly which parts of the anime inspired each insight. It's just not necessary. Let's come back to structured thinking. To effectively structure your thinking, it's essential to dedicate specific sessions tailored to the complexity of your problem. I have made 3 different types of thinking modes, and I call these the thinking sessions. First, you have a short thinking session, STS, where you dedicate very little time, and the required focus is minimal because the complexity of the problem is not significant. Next, we have a medium thinking session, MTS, which is for moderately complex tasks. Here you have to dedicate a good amount of time to think, and your focus should remain at a high level. Finally, we have the grand thinking session, GTS. This is where you dedicate significant time, which means hours or even days, and you must maintain absolutely intense focus. Every bit of your mind must be aware and focused, allowing you to observe the situation from every angle. Here, a part of MTS could be separated into a STS for ease, and a GTS could be separated into a MTS but not into an STS, because the task will be too complex for it to handle. I won't cover all of these thinking sessions in this video. Instead, I have decided to dedicate a video for each thinking session. But for now, after you are done observing the problem, take some notes. Yes, write things down physically, because if you have to revisit old thoughts, it will serve as a distraction in your thinking. Just write down literally everything that comes to your mind while observing. Now that you are done observing, what you have to do next is imagine a situation where the problem is solved. Right after you are done observing the problem, perfectly imagine a world where this problem is solved. Imagine it realistically and within the practical reach of this world. If you can perfectly imagine the solution, it means that the problem can be solved. If not, then the problem cannot be solved, or at least you cannot solve it yet. Imagine the solution and reverse engineer it. Work backwards and identify all the necessary things or outcomes that would make that outcome certain. Clearly visualize every detail of that resolved scenario. Identify precisely what conditions would be necessary for this ideal outcome. But it's not done yet. You might realize that some problems just cannot be solved at this time. For example, if your problem requires having $1 million, then no matter what, until you have that money, you won't be able to solve it. There could still be ways around it, so think more, but if you are fully certain that the problem cannot be solved, then comes the next step. Set aside your main problem for now and think of the sub-problem as the main problem. Yes, learning $1 million is your main problem for now. Keep track of your original problem because our main goal is still that. But if you cannot solve even the sub-problem, keep dividing it until you get to one sub-problem that can be solved in the present. The sub-problem will be at most as difficult as the real main problem. But it won't be tougher than the real problem, because the sub-problem is a part of the real problem. Keep dividing the sub-problem until you reach one sub-problem you are certain you can solve. Then you will see a kind of chain reaction, and you'll realize that each sub-problem solves a sub-problem, eventually leading you to solve the original problem. Eventually, yes, eventually, that is the key word. If we take the previous example of earning $1 million, eventually, if we keep subdividing the problem and doing each subtask, we will earn $1 million. But we don't want to be a millionaire eventually, we want all of it now. So we have another element I haven't talked about yet, time. If we had infinite time, every problem would be solved. If we had infinite time, we just had to take the smallest step towards our problem. If our progress is infinitely close to zero, like 0.00001% say every million years, given infinite time, we would still reach the solution. But in this world, we have very limited time. And how do we account for this ever-changing element? We want everything faster, sooner, quicker. We want everything right now. I will share my final framework incorporating time in my next upload.